Morale in the Pokemon video games is very low right now, and with no new titles on the immediate horizon, we as fans are in a sort of reflection period. How did we get here? The late 90s would see the birth of something miraculous, one of the most important events in human history, the creation and meteoric rise of Pokemon. It was a leading force for so many into new mediums, video games, anime, trading cards, but also lighting a fire in our creative selves. Our imaginations were led to run wild in this world and invent our own adventures countless times. The games weren't just entertaining, they were emotionally significant events. The attachment to them that millions feel creates not just a bond with those memories, but others that share similar ones. As children, we recognized this, and no matter what life threw at us, there was always something new in the world of Pokemon coming over the horizon to captivate us all over again. It was safety, it was home. That sense of familiarity was truly special comfort and energizing alike. You can find bad in just about anything. The corporate side of that machine has always existed, but it never really felt front and center. Maybe you can chalk that up to childlike innocence or infatuation, but I don't think that matters. The impact and legacy as a whole is hard to argue being anything but positive. The games were simple at first. Catch Pokemon, train to become stronger with them, and travel the world. Thwart evil when you see it. Value the connections you make and they will open doors. And with each passing generation, it was expressed more and more clearly. More color and detail was added. New companions would join the world by the hundreds. The weight of what you were asked to overcome became heavier. Even when questionably written, the gravity was felt. The new activities were fun, and eventually we could connect with anyone around the globe that we wanted to trade or battle with. There were growing pains. The franchise was aging, and so were its players. People fell in and out, not loving certain new games compared to the old, but a huge amount still showed up for every new release and shared that journey with other trainers. The internet was growing, and we expressed this gratitude in countless ways that brought us even closer together. Soon, about 20 years had passed, and Pokémon Go reintroduced the franchise to so many who only remembered it from their brief time with it in the 90s. The stage was set. The hype was palpable. The 4 handheld console generations had passed. Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, DS, and now 3DS was coming to a close. And Nintendo had something we couldn't imagine in store. The Nintendo Switch was coming, ending the divide between their home and handheld consoles. And the amount of people who would buy it would exceed any console they had made before their entire time as a company. Pokemon was on everyone's mind. We'd seen some home console releases, but never truly complete adventures. Things were about to change forever. There were 5 main releases for Pokemon on the Nintendo Switch. So what happened? The first was Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Instead of a big adventure on the new console like we were hoping for, it was a pretty but bare-bone remake of the first games. There was a small, limited gimmick implemented for Pokemon Go players, but beyond that, a lifeless retreading of what people already experienced. The next year we would get Sword and Shield, mired with controversy around certain Pokemon not returning, but more importantly showcasing a region less vibrant than the previous games while boasting an incomplete story. There was next to no exploration, and the characters introduced that were interesting were given nothing to do. While many systems in the game were improved, it was still contained in an unsatisfying package. 2 years later we would get another remake, this time one fans have been clamoring over for years, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. But despite the anticipation, the games were outsourced to a company who had never worked on a Pokemon game before and lazily copied and pasted code from the originals. There were some new additions and changes, but it didn't stop the massive disappointment and betrayal people felt. These are likely the most hated games in the franchise. So 3 releases and years into the new console, and it felt like everything had gotten worse but more expensive. The magic we'd all grown up with wasn't gone, right? How could things have been steadily improving for so long just to have screeched to an abrupt halt? Well, we would be bewildered even further just 2 months later. Pokemon Legends Arceus released in January of 2022, and while not loved by everyone, it showed a completely different realm of possibility. A big change of game feel. We were now hiding and sneaking around Pokémon to catch them, doing away with random encounters. We experienced meaningful freedom and change for the first time in a decade. For many, it became their favorite game in the franchise. The stark contrast between the game we had just received 2 months earlier and this one was staggering. Let's not kid ourselves, it's no Breath of the Wild, but it did breathe new life into a stagnating shell. People wanted more. And later that same year, we'd receive yet another game. Scarlet and Violet had pushed everything we had experienced to new extremes. On the one hand, the game was downright the most unfinished of any on the console. The glitches were baffling, and the region was desolate. Nintendo even released an apology for the game's terrible performance. On the other hand, they still maintained a new open-world philosophy, keeping the game free-flowing. And towards the end, they delivered one of the best and most impactful story sequences in the entire franchise. These combating extremes led some fans to forgive, and others to be completely done. 2 years later, we'd get an announcement of another Legends game, and since the previous one was the most critically well received, most people were relieved. But they also gave no release date, and to the time of this video's recording, no updates. This has left the fandom in a reflective period. A lot of pessimism has rightfully bubbled up. With so many missteps and no signals of going back, how can they trust the direction of this franchise? It's more than unfortunate or disappointing. People feel personally offended that something so dear to them has seemingly changed for the worse. How do the developers feel? Are they frustrated with their output? Are they apathetic as long as it sells? Do they care more than we do but can't speak on it? We don't know. The reliable comfort of these games has been shaken. We're older, and the world has become more uncertain. Anxiety permeates in everyday life, and it's hard to let go of things so foundational to who you are, especially when they've gotten you through so much. As I felt the magic leave little by little, I've questioned Pokemon's place in my life over and over again. The fond memories will never leave, but I want to make new ones. I've taken some time away to play other games, experience more things in life. I'm starting to notice the same things show up elsewhere. I peer into other fandoms and see the most long-term and dedicated fans expressing frustrations about the company who owns the franchise they love so much. So, is it inevitable? Does the course of our society guarantee the wearing down of what we love? Maybe the key is acceptance. I think we're all waiting and watching. We want what comes next to be great. We want to support and believe in better outcomes. We want to trust strangers. We've been given so much reason not to, and hey, maybe the next step will be disappointing. So what, do we stop being open to possibilities? I'm not saying to just accept anything, only to give potential a chance when it shows itself. We could have always seen these games as nothing more than figures on a screen and button presses that make noises, but we felt why that would be downplaying it all. We were mobilized and encouraged to do better. And the moment the faith is gone, so is opportunity. I hope everyone working on the games is okay. I hope anyone diluting good outcomes changes their approach. And even though I'm not trying to live in the past, I hope the next game or the game after that, I don't have to analyze my love so much. I can just feel it.